thank you for tuning in with us tonight. I would like to welcome our co-host, King Channing. This is his first TikTok live, so guys, please show him some love. Moderators, if you could please send his YouTube information into the comment section so everyone can refer to his channel and follow him. That would be greatly appreciated. So thank you so much for giving us the time and giving us an opportunity to kind of get a perspective of your education and the things you're excited about.
Okay. Not a problem at all.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to this. I've been watching you for a couple months. When did you start your channel?
A little bit over 2 years ago.
Okay, and you've had some pretty good success. I mean, you get thousands of views every single video.
Yeah. Definitely has been a grind up, but at the point now where it is definitely starting to look up bigger and bigger. But I remember those days when it was less than 100 subs, less than 500 subs, and getting sometimes 20 views, sometimes 100 views, and I was even excited during those days. So to be at the point now where I do a video and I get 2,000 and 3,000 views is like wow.
It's a blessing. What do you think is maybe one of the easiest and the hardest things of being a researcher and then presenting that online?
First thing is you have to either love or feel passionate about what you're doing. That's the first thing, because that makes making the content about that easy. But if it was something that you maybe was just doing just for clicks, or maybe you had to do something for work, something along those lines, then that would make it difficult. But I love Quant. I love HBAR. I love the distributed ledger technology sector and where it's going as far as the world is concerned. Whether most people realize it or not, when you have governments and central banks making rules, every one of those jurisdictions have to follow it. Like there's no bucking against the system or you go to jail. But we'll get into all of that.
Channing, if you could very quickly kind of maybe walk us through how you started your investing career, and then ultimately how did you stumble upon some of the projects that you're really interested in?
Absolutely. So I was at the gym one day, right? And I overheard a guy, I was in the locker room, and I overheard a guy talking on the phone to whoever he was talking to at the time. I now know that was his uncle, but I overheard him talking on the phone. This is around that 2020-ish mark. And he was talking to his uncle about investing in Apple and Tesla, and there was another one. And I had just recently downloaded a Robinhood, and I didn't know anything about it, but I just knew I wanted to start doing some type of investing, right? So I felt that as a sign. So fast forward maybe 3 months, I heard his same voice again in the locker room talking about, Apple and Tesla and whoever the case may be. But this time he's having a conversation in person with someone. And that day, the first day when I heard him talking about that, I was like, well, I'm just gonna put money in it. I'm gonna put money in Apple, money in Tesla, money in whatever. But again, I did that and didn't even look at it. So we're now 3 months later, and he's talking to someone else in regards to, investing in Apple and Tesla and whatever else he was talking about at that time. And I was like, yo, bro, was you in here maybe like 3 months ago and you were talking about investing in Apple and Tesla? And he was like, yeah, I think that was me. And I was like, bro, I listened to you and I did that. He was like, really? And I was like, yeah. He was like, how you doing? And I was like, I don't know. Because I hadn't looked at it. I really didn't know. He was like, well, let me see. So I opened up my Robinhood. He was like, bro, you're in the green 500 today. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm in the green 500. He's like, bro, you made $500 today. I was like, are you serious? But just being, of course, very, very green to the market. But just listening. And the reason why I listened that time is because I had a friend in 2016 tell me to buy Bitcoin. I didn't listen. And I gotten into the season in my life where I was like, when it comes to the investment journey, when someone is talking about something with conviction, do a little research and then listen. So that's why I listened to him when he was like, buy Apple and buy Tesla. But that was, of course, during that 2020 craze where the markets were crazy, the crypto markets was crazy. After that big dip, we had that big old shoot off that went clear into 2001, and then the bear market started. But I learned a lot about that as well. But anyway, that's how I started in the investment journey, was just overhearing someone talk about something that I had somewhat interest in, but just kind of sort of, I'll say, lack of a better term, ignorant to the facts of actually what was taking place with the market and any of that. So I wound up joining his investment group. He had an investment group text message. So I wound up joining his name is Randy, my boy Randy. And we got into other like EV car stuff and all this type of stuff. But then he introduced me to something called Dogecoin. And I was like, what is Dogecoin? He was like, bro, just buy this much of it and let's just see what it do. So I did. And maybe like 4 months later, 5 months later, that's when Dogecoin was going stupid. Like I bought it and I think I was at like originally maybe 2 or 3 zeros. And it was now 15 cents or some crap like that. It was going ridiculous. And then of course it got all the way up to, of course, right before the whole Elon Musk thing, we almost hit $1, which was insane. But Dogecoin showed me like, yo, this investment thing is crazy, but what is this crypto thing? And that's what it was like, wow. So then he mentioned something else, bro, buy Shiba Inu. And Shiba is really what started it for me. I wound up getting a crypto.com account and starting an investment journey that has led me down the pathway of where I am now, which is solely utility. But I'll explain the reason why for that. But I'll just tap a little bit into Shiba. Shiba was great as well because I got into Shiba early. And a lot of people segued from Doge into Shiba, and then from Shiba to Saitama and all these other meme tokens that were just going crazy in the market. And you had all of these influencers on YouTube talking about all these meme tokens like it was the best sliced thing since sliced bread. You know, you had Shiba, and then Shiba had an ecosystem with Bone and Leash and Treat and all of these wonderful things, and Satoshi and all of this wonderful stuff of meme. But then I started kind of sort of doing a little more research and trying to understand this market, because I kind of sort of got the other market, but the crypto market is, although it's the same, it's different. So I'm like, what is tokenomics? And I'm like, okay, Shiba Inu has, what was it, like something like 1 quadrillion. It was an crazy amount of tokens. And I was just doing further and further research on this. I want to say the first utility token I came across, I believe, might have been HBAR. And when I saw the HBAR governing council, I was like, wait a minute, Google, IBM, at that point in time, Boeing? Like, wait a minute, hold on. This ain't no Saitama, Shiba Inu. The developers keep making all these stupid things and nothing ever comes of it. These are real legitimate companies that are a part of a crypto company. Let me see what this is. And I dove into Hedera and I was like, wow, which led me down the pathway of ISOs. And then I heard about Quant from Everything Crypto. And that was a wrap. But then after hearing about Quant from Everything Crypto, I found Maximus Crypto's page. And this is back when he would do 2 and 3 hour lives about these things, about utility and the new financial system that was going into place and all of these things. So I really dove into it. And that's when I started truly educating myself about truly what is happening right now. And it is the global financial system moving on to blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. And this is being spearheaded by the G20, and it is a part of their Agenda 2030. It is also being spearheaded by the BRICS nations, who also have a very similar Agenda 2030. And a huge part of that is the global interoperation of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies and the integration of AI throughout the economy. And people truly don't understand when Anton, I can't think of his last name, was one of the Russian officials, and he was speaking in regards to the AI race and of course the digital currency race as well. But he was talking about how other countries already have to like thousands of robots working already. Like China already has thousands of robots working across the economy, and how they are trying to position themselves to literally be the same and do the same. And America is going right there for it as well. The AI race is getting ready to take place, but also what people are failing to realize is the machine learning and the machine like robotics part of it. Because the AI is going to take like clerical jobs, but it's going to be the machine robotics that takes physical jobs. And that's what's going to really, really hit the economy in a way that we've never been hit before since the Great Depression. But I won't even go into all that right now. But diving into that Agenda 2030 from the G20, I'm like, okay, well, there has to be real players. If you have a meme token, which is like maybe your McDonald's or your, you know, your Burger King, then you have to have like some filet mignon somewhere. And that's when I found out about Quant Network. And oh my God. My very first introduction to Quant Network is when I heard of something called the Bank of International Settlements. And I heard that, my ears said, who is that? Because I'm like, that sounds important. And then when I did research on what they were, which is the central bank of central banks, literally the oldest international financial institution in the world, it was developed in 1930. And they literally have in the description the central bank of central banks. Like, it's absolutely insane. But then to know that Quant Network not had a closeted, closed door, you know, something that nobody knew about, but an open, you know, working relationship on Project Rosalind. And I was like, Project Rosalind, what is that? So then I do even more research and you realize, wait a minute, the Bank of England is involved with this too? Like, wait a minute, and this is a crypto company? I found my filet mignon. So as I, you know, dive deeper into Quant Network and truly understand what they have going on, and I, you know, further research into Overledger, which is their software as a service, which is literally the third industrial revolution's software as a service. It is going to connect every system to every system globally. But I'll get into that as well. So I'm diving into this thing with now Quant Network and the Bank of International Settlements and the Bank of England. And they're working on something called a CBDC, which stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. So I'm like, oh, they get ready to take this thing mainstream, where they're literally getting ready to onboard the distributed ledger technology sector, and they're getting ready to do it via the public sector, because that's what Project Rosalind was. It was a retail CBDC, not a wholesale CBDC. So knowing who the Bank of International Settlements was and understanding what they were doing made me start doing further research on Quant Network. And this is even before the Oracle's Digital Assets Edition, you know, partnership and announcement, but they had already had a slew of other partnerships and announcements with things by this point in time with things like SIA and Nexi Group. Now we're talking about over 5,000 banks across Europe. Like, these are literally the infrastructure players that the banks send their transactions through. Already have an open relationship and workmanship with Quant Network. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, why is nobody talking about this crypto company? Then it gets better. Then I found out about ISO TC 307, and everybody's harping about ISO 20022, which is great, that messaging standard, but everyone in crypto should really be talking about ISO TC 307 because that is the global standard for building on blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. And who spearheaded that global standard? Gilbert Verdian, Quant Network's CEO. What? Hold on, stop, pause, bam. So you mean to tell me that you have a crypto company, again, I air quotes, that is now tied to at least two central banks at this point in time, just in my development and my growing of Quant Network, because I'm not even nowhere near done, which is insane. But tied back to two central banks, and these are two of the biggest central banks in the world, the ECB and the Bank of England at this point in time, in my knowledge of Quant, and now tied back to the global standard for building on blockchain, which is ISO TC 307. And the CEO of Quant sits over the working group 7, which is interoperability. And they just happen to have a interoperable software as a service Overledger that they're now giving to their biggest, or basically selling to their biggest clients, which are the Bank of International Settlements, literally, Oracle at this point in time in my knowledge, the ECB. So I go even deeper into Quant Network, and then I hear about blockchain. Now all this stuff is already taking place. All this stuff has been happening since 2021, 2022, 2023, I'm like, wait a minute, this is insane, because I'm sitting at this point in time, this is about 2023 that I'm diving into all of these things, but there's things that they have been doing for years. Because think about it, ISO TC 307 started in 2016. So they were well within this journey by the time I got introduced to Quant Network and everything that they had been doing. But then blockchain. So that's 12 countries in Central and South America, and they were getting ready to, at that point in time, deploy. Because I was watching an interview with Gilbert Burton during that point in time, and that's when they were getting ready to literally onboard Overledger and start the dollarization, or what they call the Latin American dollar, but it's pegged to the value of the US dollar. But it's because it is the CBDC for America. They just don't know it yet. Because it's pegged to the US dollar, because the Latin American market is the test market for America's CBDC. And this is right out of Gilbert Burton's mouth, the CEO of Quant Network. It's just nobody's paying attention. These things have been cemented and put in place for a very long time. That's why even in America, I know that there's an anti-CBDC, banned in America right now. But what people don't understand is that expires in 2030. Guess what? CBDCs weren't going live until 2030 anyway. That was literally just to appease the people in the house that making that upheaval. Look at the digital euro, look at the digital pound, look at all of the CBDC trials that Quant Network has had with things like the Bank of Mexico. I didn't even got to Enbridge. That was the Bank of Thailand, the People's Digital Institute of China, the Bank of Israel, and then the Saudi Central Bank joined after that. There was another one as well. Quant Network was a part of that, providing what? Interoperability for their transference of their wholesale CBDCs. And all these things were just converging at the same time about this one company. And I'm like, but nobody is talking about it. Everybody's talking about, the hottest meme on Twitter and YouTube, but nobody's talking about the actual meat and potatoes of the market that's being built out. So around this time is when I'm like, you want to know what? I got to do something. And I got to let people know about this incredible opportunity of Quant Network. And that's when I started my channel, because there was, like, at this point in time, that I know of, 3 people talking about Quant. 4 if you count Quantstradamus, but he was in and out. You had Maximus Crypto, you had All in Crypto, you had all in Crypto, and you had Incas Official. And every now and again, Tokenizer would hop in and out of YouTube. You had Mind Crypto. That was what? A handful. And it is literally one of the most incredible opportunities that anybody in retail has ever had, is because it's backed by 63 countries. Look up ISO TC 307 if you don't know what it is. It is the global standard for building on blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. Quant Network CEO is the convener-in-chief of Working Group 7. You can go to the website. You can see all of this. His name is Gilbert Burton. You guys truly educate yourself about the real space, because regulation is coming. The Clarity Act is going to pass here in America alongside of multiple other legislation all around the world. And they're getting ready to carve out this market, because you have players like BlackRock and Finality moving into it. You have players like the London Stock Exchange moving into it. You have players like the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. All of these players have already announced 24/7 trading and tokenization of the assets and securities that sit on their platforms. All of them, everyone I just named, because you have the true onboarding of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies getting ready to happen on a global, massive scale. And you have the infrastructure of that globally, which all ties back to Quant Network Software as a Service, which is Overledger. And you have players like now Murex, somebody who moves 25% of the capital markets, the Forex market, globally, now onboarding them publicly. But that's just a little rant in regards to my little crypto journey thus far and how I even got to creating content. But it's because nobody was talking about this incredible opportunity of Quant Network. And all of the historic things that they are doing in the Web3 space, alongside of players that just maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, people would have been selling their form to buy into somebody working with the Bank of International Settlement, the Bank of International Settlements. And now somebody's doing it and nobody's even caring. The price is at 60 something, 70 something bucks. And it's like, you guys are going to miss the boat and you guys are going to regret this. But I kick it back over to you, man. That was a little rant.
Guys, he's like a Spitfire Uzi, just out with information. Boom, 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 boom. You could tell it's hours and hours of research, fundamentally connecting all of the breadcrumbs and displaying a clear vision of where we currently are and where we're exactly progressing into. I feel like I have somewhat of a similar journey as well. When I came in, I was kind of distracted, or necessarily didn't understand my footings of where we currently are and where we're heading into. And I feel like many people are still struggling to have that envision of where we are. So I fundamentally, here's my investment thesis. I fundamentally believe that we are in a speculative, narrative-driven market. Bitcoin is kind of what's driving everything else. And rules and regulations will be the catalyst for mass institutional onboarding by your central banks, your governments, your corporations. And that in and of itself, they are not utilizing this technology as an investment vehicle. They will be utilizing the technology as technology. That in and of itself will create reoccurring demand for these utility projects. And we are shifting out of a speculative-driven market into a utility-driven market where projects that have real-world use cases, big partners that are utilizing them, and can comply with the rules and regulations will ultimately be your next Amazon, your next NVIDIA, your next Google. So how did you ultimately, what would you suggest to somebody who may not be willing to put in the time to research what the BIS is saying, what the IMF is saying, what the ISCO is saying? What would be your suggestion to the person who may not be able to envision what the next 5 years down the road looks like?
I say just take the time to educate yourself. Even if that's following somebody on YouTube and watching maybe a video a day, like what's that, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of your time, depending on how long the video was the day that you were watching. And follow the news, but don't follow the news. And what I mean by that is follow the news as far as when legislation and things like that are being passed, follow that, but follow it on your own. Like you can go have a Twitter and have these things popping up on your, your news feed, not necessarily the actual news, because sometimes the actual news clouds things. And depending on what side of the political rail you sit on, you may not get certain information. This is another reason why when I do watch the news, I watch both sides. I watch the Republican side and I watch the Democratic side. I watch Fox just as much as I will watch CNN and MSNBC. I won't even get into that right there, but I feel like, and this is, it pisses me off to say this, but the Republican side is setting their party up for success. They're setting their party up for the onboarding of distributed technologies, blockchain, AI, and a slew of other very transformable technologies that's getting ready to be massively adopted globally. And the Democratic side is not talking to their constituents about this. When I say whatsoever. The only thing they're saying are things like, Trump got a meme token, his family's profiting off of crypto. Although those things might be true, what else is happening? So I say just try your best to educate yourself and get a full, well-rounded picture of the entire puzzle. Don't just look at one side of something. I unfortunately, sometimes I look at, videos that don't talk so favorably about Quant Network. I could just dismiss it, but I listen to it because I just want to hear, what you have to say. But then in hearing what you have to say, I realize you don't know what you're talking about. You're mistaken. Please go somewhere and sit down. But just to keep myself, informed, because I want to be objective, And if it was something that you were saying that was, fundamentally objective about what the project can and cannot do, I would have listened, but not about speculation and how what you feel about recycling tokens and things of that nature. Like, no, 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 no. You're not even thinking big enough. It's so much more than just CBDCs and money. It's literally every system in the world. It is the new Windows, literally. Just like Windows was on every computer and every laptop at one point in time, Windows had a good 80, 90% of the market share as far as software services is concerned. Well, that is Overledger. But anyway, educate yourself. Like I said, whether it's just somebody on YouTube, and maybe take just one thing out of that particular video and just research it. Just Google it, or just maybe say there was a 20-minute video, but they said something about the New York Stock Exchange doing 24/7 trading. Well, let me go and actually research and see, is the New York Stock Exchange actually doing this? Are they moving on to tokenization of assets and securities on it? And then you would furthermore just have broadened your horizons a little bit more. And you also just showed yourself that the research isn't as hard as you think it is. It's just take the time just to do it. But following someone that's solid, myself, Apex of Jesse from Apex, Maximus Crypto, literally the QNT GOAT, like his deep dives are second to none. Because I didn't even get into the RLN. I haven't gotten to GBDT yet. I haven't gotten to so many things about Quant Network. It's absolutely insane. But then, like all in crypto, I miss my brother, Mind Crypto, because see, what I loved about Mind Crypto was I would watch Maximus Crypto for the US view of Quant, and I would watch Mind Crypto for the UK's view of Quant, because because he's right there in the heart of it. Does that make sense? So he's even probably seeing news that we don't even see, that we're having to search for. Because there was a couple news things that I saw that was just readily available that was a part of just the UK news. You know what I'm saying? That we wouldn't have gotten over here at all. So it was good because I got mine during the height of him being on YouTube. So then because honestly, when I really first started making videos, I would literally piece, if you go back to my old videos, I would piece Maximus Crypto and Mind Crypto videos together, talking about the same thing, but you would see it in different ways, because Maximus do this like incredible deep dive breakdowns. It was insane, the amount of research. Like that's what inspired me to do research, because I started originally I thought he was Gilbert Verdian's brother or some crap like that. I'm like, there's no way you know this much, this many intimate details, about this space. But then he introduced me to Quant Papa, and that's where he was getting his information from. And I was like, he gotta be a true insider, because the stuff that Quant Papa has, like y'all don't even see half of the stuff that Quant Papa has. Like, it's absolutely insane, the information that is out there about Quant Network and the interconnectedness of humongous players. There's been several non-disclosure agreement things that have been shared with me that I still have never said on my channel. Does that make sense? But anyway, just educate yourself.
Channing, you and I both maybe have a fundamental understanding as somebody who is doing the research, and maybe they start to get a keen insight as to where we are progressing. Maybe the next step that they start to bring themselves into is rules, regulations, and compliance. Now, you had mentioned ISO/TC 307, which is your blockchain and your DLT standardization, international standardization. I think you and I both have come to the conclusion that those who can operate in and within the rules, regulations, and frameworks will ultimately be the chosen ones that will institutionally be capable of onboarding while maintaining compliance and regulatory permissions. Can you maybe touch a little bit more upon how important standardization is, and how it's almost the gateway as to what will be mass institutionally onboarded versus the ones that the institutions, the central banks, cannot legally touch?
Absolutely. So just Gilbert Verdian, very, very brilliant man. So he was introduced to Bitcoin in the I think it was the first or second year that Bitcoin was even in existence. He dove into blockchain. He saw how useful blockchain could be, but understood that it was too early. And a big part of that too early was there was a lack of common standards and a lack of regulation globally, right? So he went on about his career path until getting a job as one of the higher ups in the Australian healthcare system, okay? He had a complex problem he needed to figure out in regards to interconnecting healthcare systems throughout Australia. And that is when he stumbled upon, this is the perfect use case for blockchain. Bitcoin and all that stuff was great, but this is true utility. This is true use of the technology, if that makes sense. So he built that out, which put him on the lens of the ISO. Now, this is very important. And standardization is the biggest part of any market of a global size. And it's because they all have to be able to speak the same language. So, and I believe it was 2014 is when he started the journey of building out ISO TC 307. 2015, it was actually put together as a standard. And by 2016, it was being actually saying, okay, you guys, you got the green light, start the process of standardizing blockchain globally. And what he did was brilliant, because while everybody is off in these siloed ledgers, building out technologies, you know, what he is looking at is, how can I take the technology and bring it to the masses where everyone can utilize it interoperably, globally, just like they utilize the systems of today, like email, you know, like when you send a picture, things of that nature. So that standardization and him taking that leap of standardization at that point in time literally put us years ahead of where we would be. Like, if that had not happened, if you think about it, we would probably been at least 5 or 6 years away from anyone taking blockchain seriously enough to start the process of standardizing it. Like, Gilbert Verdian really does need a huge kudos in that space, because we wouldn't even be at the point of regulation. We wouldn't be at the point of, you know, banks onboarding anything without that standardization that took place, that have now had, I want to say it's 11 standards, or no, 12 or 13, I think now, standards have come out and been published out of the ISO TC 307, you know, working committee. And working group 7 is the one that he's over, which is interoperability, which was just officially published in March of this year. And that officially made Overledger, their software as a service, the global standard for building on blockchain. So now that that standard has been put in place, now you have countries starting the regulation process, because they have a baseline to base that regulation off of. That's the reason why when the Genius Act was signed into law, one of those things, when you look through that, they talk about the standard, making sure that they're adhering to the standard. And they talk about interoperability. There's only one interoperable standard in the world, and that is Overledger, that was birthed out of ISO TC 307, the global standard for building on blockchain, that 63 countries have officially coupled themselves with. That standardization, now we have the rulemaking taking place. Now, you and I are here in the US, so I'll keep it here, but it's happening everywhere. But we had the Genius Act come through, that standardizing of, this is what a stable coin is. If you want to operate in the realm of stable coins in the US and you want to use a US value-backed stable coin, you have to use these rules that are set forth in this law, and you can now create essentially American currency. Think about how big the Genius Act was. That regulation was so historic. It was the first time in 113 years that the legal tender of America changed. The last time that happened was when the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law and cash was deemed currency. Think about how major the Genius Act was, because we now have another official legal tender that has regulatory backing in stablecoins that's adhering to the Genius Act guidelines. But then now we have the Clarity Act. Now that's getting your capital markets in place. That's getting your commodities under the CFTC and your securities under the SEC. That's now telling them, put your rulemaking in place so that we can now start interoperating things like the New York Stock Exchange. Things like the DTCC will be sending, so that they can settle those assets through you, because they're already tokenizing it on their end as well. Because of the standardization of the technology. It was incredibly critical to get a clear and utter standardization of the technology so that gives it a baseline for it can be built from. Without that baseline, it's like you were saying, the everything is here, there, and everywhere. There's no type of, like, think about the ungodly swings of the 2021 market in crypto. Think about the euphoria of that high, but think about when that thing really dipped for like the 5th time in like a month. It was just like, good God, how low is it gonna go? You know? But the standardization of that, and then with that standardization, there's going to become an influx of trillions of regulatory compliant money, which is going to even more stabilize the market. The standards and the laws are giving it that baseline, but then that regulatory money that's going to come into these markets like nobody has ever seen before, that is getting ready to stabilize the markets. Will we still have our swings? Yes, absolutely. But they won't be as critical when it's, because it's not me saying, oh, this is a rug pull, let me put my money out. It is FedEx sending every single package that goes through its supply chain via Hedera's technology, utilizing HBAR. It is Quant processing payments for the Bank of England. That's totally different than some DGen saying the market is red, let me pull my money out. We're talking the utilization of a technology. Like I said before, Gilbert Verdian saw that it was a real use case that can be built on top of it. Let me standardize this so we can actually utilize it globally. So it was the bedrock of it was the standardization, and ISO TC 307 is the bedrock of it. And that's now tied back to things like the IEEE and the IUTI, which are other standardizing bodies that Gilbert Verdian also brought into the umbrella of ISO TC 307 to ensure that it's not just this standardizing body doing this, but it's all of us working in unison, which is crazy to think, but factual. But go ahead, brother.
Can you maybe teach us a little bit about the services that Quant's offering? We have Overledger, we have QuantNet, we have Quant Flow, and then hopefully the main net is coming out for Quant Fusion. Could you maybe walk us through what these things kind of are enabling for your commercial, your institutional clientele, and ultimately what is the long-term perspective of these use cases? Why is it so important for the banks to have these options that they can utilize this technology? What does that do for the whole crypto space?
Okay. Right before I do that, somebody asked the question that they just caught my eye, asked me about the Clarity Act and regulation and will it benefit? Absolutely, but don't think that it's going to be just like the Clarity Act is signed, oh my God, regulation, oh, it's benefiting, but it absolutely is going to benefit it. But these things take time. So after it's signed, then you have to, the SEC will put their rulemaking in place. And then the companies will have a certain amount of time to actually adhere to that rulemaking before things actually kick off and go live. So we're still, even if it gets signed this year, we still talking 2027, 2028, truly seeing things kick off, okay? But back to your question. But definitely it's going to benefit it, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. So Overledger is the software as a service to the software as a services, okay? I think what Quant Network has done is something absolutely brilliant. So on top of building out the global standard for building on blockchain and attaching it to global standards and internet protocols like Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, and central banks, commercial banks, multinational corporations, they were like, okay, Overledger is cool, but what can we build on top of it? That was the game changer. Because if you think about it, Quant Network has a very unique view of Overledger because they're the ones that created it. People like Martin Hargraves, people like Dr. Luke Riley, you know, these people are the people that literally put these things in place, these lines of code in place, you know? So when I want to say the very first product after Overledger was Quant Authorized. And what Quant Authorized was literally like an auditing system, essentially, to the capital markets to ensure, but it's bank grade, central bank grade, and it was something about keys. So I had to do a little research about what are these keys, and basically it's how transactions are encrypted, essentially, through the huge institutions. And I'm like, holy crap, Quant Authorized is crazy. What is this? And this is one of those products, one of the first ones that I was introduced to that was built out on top of Overledger. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then I hear about Overwallet. I'm like, what the crap? What is Overwallet? And what it is a blockchain agnostic wallet. No matter what blockchain your asset sits on, it is stored securely and safely inside of this wallet that is built out on top of the global standard Overledger. Okay? And at this point in time, I don't have the viewpoint of what they're doing, but I'm like, this is dope. Okay? So then a couple more months, maybe even a year, because it was a while after Authorized, and I think the wallet, it was a while before they released anything else. And then Quant Flow, I believe it was Quant Flow that hit the market. And I was like, what in the world is Quant Flow? And then when I saw that it was literally the integration of the commercial banks and the small and medium-sized businesses, because, you know, your Authorized would handle things like your BlackRock and any major like Oracles and all of that type of thing. So then when I saw Quant Flow, and I was like, okay, well, it's the integration into your commercial banks and your small businesses. And then they came out with Quant Pay Scripts like maybe a month after Quant Flow. And I was like, what in the world is this? Wait a minute. This is your payroll? This is literally like, wait a minute, hold on. So you can run your payroll through this, you can run your payments through this, you can run your processing through this, you can run your inventory through this. Literally building out the infrastructure for your small businesses and your credit unions and your commercial banks. So they've already built out the infrastructure for your central banks with Quant Authorized and Overwallet. They built out your infrastructure with your central banks and your asset managers with Overwallet and Authorized and your big boys, but now they're tackling your banks. And then I want to say they mentioned GBDT after that, but then you have, I believe it was Quant Net. I think I'm missing one of them in the midst of that. And then essentially what people don't realize is what Quant Net is nothing but a big old, Fusion came first. Then Quant Net was the second one. So I want to say Fusion, and then this was a multi-ledger roll-up, which only coincides with the patent that they got here in America. If you look up Quant Network's patent, it is literally for chronologically ordering blockchain transactions, bringing all the blockchains into one hemisphere and time zone, the multi-ledger rollup. It's like, wait a minute, what? So they came out with they came out officially with, over so many of the products with Quant Fusion 2.5, the multi-ledger rollup. And I'm like, wait a minute. So now you've just captured the commercial banks, the central banks, the asset managers, the small businesses, the large businesses, and now you're capturing every blockchain that they need to tap into. And now you release Quant Net. And what Quant Net is literally that whole suite of products put together into one. It's absolutely insane, the products that they have built out on top of Overledger. And what they're now offering to their customers as plug and play technology. You guys truly, like prime example, when they had that integration with Zero, Zero is a software as a service that I want to say Zero has, I think it was 7 million customers globally that they supply some type of software as a service to. Quant Network's Overledger was integrated, well, it was Overledger and Quant Flow literally was the one that was just built out for the small businesses, was integrated directly into their software as a service. So now as these people do an upgrade to their already existing software as a service, they're going to be tapping directly into Quant Network's product that is built out on top of Overledger. Think about right now, that may not be very many businesses, but think about after regulation and after standardization, and then the enforcement of that regulation goes live. What's going to happen when they have to comply to the global standard, and that global standard is already built into the software as a service they already have? We're talking about mass adoption on a level that most people have no clue that it's even possible. It's going to eclipse every adoption curve that we've ever seen since the beginning of time.
I think one of the most fascinating enablers of the use cases is Quant's mDApps. Walk me through a little bit about that and how this is truly a technical, systematic, fundamental upgrade to blockchain as a whole, because you may have some Dino coins that have really strong use cases in particular, but maybe their TPS is slow compared to some of the new coins, and how Quant's mDApps kind of enables the clientele to choose and pick the best characteristics out of each blockchain. Walk us through Quant's mDApps for a minute.
So you have mDApps, right? With the mDApp, the thing that is incredible is because it lives on every chain. It can pull the strengths of everything that you need from that chain, maybe like the security of Bitcoin, or, you know, the speed of Hedera, but the, you know, the liquidity of XRP, you know what I'm saying? And you can literally, it's like essentially, now think about it like this. So you have the multi-ledger rollup on this side, right? Which are the blockchains themselves. But the mDApps are on this side of your regular businesses, the things that's tapping into Quant Flow and Quant Pay scripts. Well, the mDApp is giving this area over here, whether that's, you know, the capital markets and with securities and commodities having literally being, you know, wallet agnostic and blockchain agnostic, or whether that is one of these blockchains on this side that is fused together in this roll up that essentially makes it agnostic. And now you have people with the capability of building out applications. Think about what an mDApp is. It's an application that's going to be built out on top of Web3, right? So it's the same thing as TikTok. It's the same thing as Google. It's the same thing as, you know, Amazon. Those are applications that are built out. Now, do those things do different things? Absolutely. Like as far as Google's, you know, application, it is for searching. You know what I'm saying? And everything that Google does in regards to compiling information that it does. Amazon, you go on Amazon, it's for shopping, and everything that Amazon sells from the cradle to the grave. You know, when you have now this Web3 ecosystem being built out, and you have applications, but that's what an mDApp is. It's a multi-ledger application, you guys. And you're going to have these literally mDApps built out that you can literally seamlessly integrate into any blockchain that is tapping into the global standard and quant fusion, depending on which way, you know, this particular entity is moving. And you have something that truly is interoperable globally. It's starting with the currency. You know, I want to say digital ID is probably going to be the next thing that comes out after that. Actually might get adopted faster than the actual digital currency is digital ID. But that is a mDApp, because you're going to be able to have that digital ID interoperable across any blockchain in the world, interchangeably through any government in the world. And it's like people are not paying attention when Gilbert Verdian, the Quant Network CEO, says things. I literally just brought that in a video maybe this past weekend, or like within the past few days, when he was talking about digital ID and being able to walk off a plane in Dubai and it scans your face and you go do what you're going to do, and you go to another country and it scans your face, and it's agnostic. It is interoperable. Your ID is everywhere and nowhere all at once. It's absolutely insane, the multi-ledger applications that are being built out. And then you even have multi-ledger tokens that are also built out on top of Overledger. So there's so many complexities. You have the mDApps on this side, which are the applications that these companies will build out and be able to literally listen to what I'm telling you guys, every single function that lives in Web 2 is going to live in Web 3. All of them will have applications built in Web 3, all of them. And to think about being the connector of the connectors of all of those multi-applications globally is insane. But then, of course, like I said, you have things like the multi-ledger tokens that they also have that were mentioned by things like the IMF. Like these major financial institutions and governments are not coupling themselves with the technology that they don't fully, wholeheartedly back and know that it's going to be a success. Because they've had so many proof of concepts over the past 5 years that it's crazy. Project Dunbar, Project Agora, Project Enbridge, Project Hamilton, Project Polaris. Like, I can go on, and there's been so many projects across all these central banks and governments. It's been insane. Even things like having Quant ingrained into the UK's G-Cloud systems, the G-Cloud 12 and G-Cloud 13. Well, that's now the system, the infrastructure that the UK government is built on. It's like, what? But these are things that's loudly said, but very quietly heard around the world. And all of these things are going to be tied back into multi-applications. You're literally talking about the global interoperation on blockchain and distributed technologies from every sector. And they have an interoperable solution for every single sector you could possibly think of, which is crazy to know. But that is what methodically working for over a decade does. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't hype. It wasn't, we're dropping this next Wednesday. It wasn't any of that. It was quiet, working diligently in the background for way longer than anybody ever knew, because I didn't even get into the whole suite of patents that they got throughout 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. The patents that they've been receiving have been insane. Even just as recently this year, which was another patent in Japan, and I want to say that patent was for fusion.
Well, that's actually kind of where I would like to ask you right now. Quant Fusion mainnet, people are expecting your staking, which is essentially kind of just bringing your own nodes in. What exactly is your expectation for the potential yield? Do you think that there's going to be a potential quant lockup? What exactly is that quant staking? What is your expectation with this?
My expectation is I don't have an expectation. And it's only because I like to operate in facts and statistics. Does that make sense? And okay. I only really go off what the company has given us at this point in time. We do know that testnet is going incredibly well. I just did a video where they had 22,300 requests come in a 24-hour period. That's bananas. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what the percentage is going to be. I don't even want to guesstimate on that. I don't know how many quant tokens it's going to take to actually run a node. I don't know that. I don't even pretend to know, because I like to wait for facts. That's why I can't wait for them to drop it so I can drop a video and really I got some killer thumbnails already ready for that. But knowing, but again, going off of what they have told us, right? Knowing the very last statement that was made about Quant Fusion from the Gilbert Verdian, Quant Network CEO, he explicitly made it a point to let the little QNT holder, specifically, like literally said it, the retail QNT holder know that we have you in mind. We know how diligently you have been repping us and how long you guys have been diamond handing some of these tokens that you have been diamond handing. And we see you, and we're making provisions for you. Now, again, they didn't say, what those provisions were as far as, staking and how would we be able to, run our own nodes? Will we just attach to another node and then just get residuals like Hedera does with the governing council? Maybe something along those lines. Maybe you'll have your big boys with nodes and then we just stake to those nodes that are already like institutional, if that makes sense. Quite possibly. I wouldn't mind staking to a Bank of England node myself, with the amount of value that will be flowing through it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I try not to have an expectation when it comes to it because I wait for the meat and the potatoes of it. But I will say this: they did say, quarter 2, quarter 3, 2026. But also too, and to know why they kind of sort of is right there on par. If you think about it, they got their patent approved in Japan. Japan is using Dentsu Soken. Dentsu Soken is using Quant Network. And when I brought you guys the diagram of that, Fusion is a part of that diagram. So that means that mainnet of Fusion will have to be live by the time the tokenized deposits start coming out of in Japan. And that's supposed to be done quarter 2, 2026.
Speaking of facts and things that we can self-verify, talk to me a little bit about because the use cases could be fantastic, but if nobody is interested in the project or nobody is testing, running pilots, proof of concepts, if nobody is utilizing the technology, then the use cases is irrelevant. Speaking of facts, talk to me about some of the most exciting things in developments that QNT has been involved with.
Okay. So again, I'll just piggyback on the Bank of England first, because the Bank of England has the most public use cases that Quant Network has done, right? So they started with Project Rosalind, of course, and Project Rosalind was that CBDC central bank level. But then you had the RLN. So what the RLN was doing was interconnecting all of the commercial banks throughout the UK. And public members of that was things like Standard Chartered and Visa, and MasterCard was also a part of the RLN as well, but also things like Barclays, and you had HSBC, and I believe you had even Lloyd's in there. You had several major commercial banks throughout the UK's economy. After that, that's when they released GBDT, which was September of 2025. Now that blew my mind because that was like the first time they were like, yeah, we're using Quant. Because that day that they released that, you had the Bank of England also released that, plus all of the individual banks themselves released that, and Quant Network was releasing that use case build out. And it was so incredible because it wasn't just the tokenization of the deposits, but it's also the tokenization of the mortgages, the loan, the debt of the patrons inside of the bank. And it was the tokenization of the bond settlement at the central security depository level, Euroclear. And I was like, wait a minute. This is GBDT is ridiculous. That truly is insane. But then you fast forward from September to February, then you had the synchronization lab come out of the Bank of England. And what that is literally the synchronizing the RTGS, the real-time gross settlement system of the country, into the infrastructure of basically this QuantNet society that Quant has built out via the Rosalind, via RLN, via GBDT, and now they're synchronizing basically that whole hemisphere together, the central bank, the commercial bank, and the digitization of the money and the debt of the country. Insane. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on, bam, pause. This is incredible. But right around, it was either right after the announcement of Quant Net, or right before, they had the official announcement of the European Central Bank and the digital euro. Because at first it was all speculation. But then the ECB, comes out with its official digital euro, list of 70 participants, 71, I believe. And Quant Network was one of maybe two things that were crypto related. Everything else was banks. Everything else was businesses and central banks throughout the European diaspora. It was like, wait a minute. But then when you even dove into what they were actually doing for the ECB, it was everything they just did for the Bank of England. It was the tokenization of the money. It was the infrastructure build out and basically the capital markets as well. But anyway, so then we're now sitting in 2026, and this is all just this year's use cases that has been announced. Then you had Densu Soken, which is literally the infrastructure that Japan's banks run on. And it's like, and businesses interact with and utilize on a daily basis to the tune of ungodly amounts of money. But it wasn't just that, it was also a company called Decurrent coming out of Japan, and I believe it was JPY coin, not JPM coin, which is JP Morgan, JPY coin, which was the stable coin of Japan, the tokenized deposit of Japan. And you have a representative from that company saying what? Quant is the infrastructure. This has all been this year. It's like, wait a minute. These use cases that are being built out are bananas. And we're talking about not small countries like with LACChain. And there's no crap on what LACChain has going on because there's still 12 countries' economies. But this not something in the Caribbean. We're talking about the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, and the European Central Bank that's over 27 countries' money. What? These use cases that's being built out are bananas. And I know it has not officially been said, but also the Federal Reserve of America is also there. And the reason why I say that is because of Project Agora. Quant Network has officially been announced as providing infrastructure for Project Agora. That's 7 central banks and 42 commercial banks throughout the world. Like I said before, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve of America, the Swiss National Bank, the Bank of Mexico, and like I said, I'm missing one or two of them. But officially, because we now know officially, the Bank of England definitely, the ECB definitely, and the Bank of Japan definitely. Well, who else is a part of Project Agora? And who is providing the interoperability for Project Agora? So it has to indirectly, it has to touch the Federal Reserve of New York and the other 3 participants. So that's another incredible use case being built out. It's literally Latin for project, or Greek for project marketplace. So it's the marketplace for the central banks to come and interoperate and swap currencies? Like what? And Quant Network is the central infrastructure for that? Like, you guys, these use cases are bananas. Nobody's paying attention to the most incredible opportunity that anyone has had in retail ever. I love XRP. I love HBAR. I love, all the rest of the ISOs and Jasmine and VeChain and ZBAC and all of these wonderful maps that are being built out. But understand, those maps will do nothing and mean nothing if it's not standardized so that the institutions can actually start utilizing the technology. And it's not regulated by the regulatory body inside of the country. And that's what's happening right now, all built out on top of Quant Network's Overledger. Like, people, wake up, for real, y'all.
Channing, speaking of one of the biggest opportunities to retail, I'd like to get a little bit into your long-term perspective on this project. On your YouTube channel, you're very public about your forecasts as to what this token could inevitably be valued at. Could you talk to me a little bit about your price prediction on the token, the timeline for it, and maybe just inevitably, how does the token actually obtain some value? How does it get to these price predictions?
Okay. So as far as the price is concerned, I am hoping that as these use cases go from, like, in the words of Gilbert Burdian in one of his very last articles on the Quant Network website, said was from pilot to production at scale. So of course, if you're using Quant Flow, if you're using Quant PayScripts, Overledger Fusion, or Overledger Authorized, and all the rest of them, QuantNet, all of them, they all tap into the central infrastructure, which is Overledger, which indirectly we already know uses QNT. So if you have all of these different use cases and maps and integrations into, companies like Murex and Oracle with 430,000 customers globally, with Zero, you have all of these massive integrations and use cases that are being built out. Now in 2026, getting ready to now start the convergence of go live, as far as price, I'm hoping and seeing that hopefully by Q3 of this year, we start to see a bump in the price, well over 100, somewhere between 100 and 1,000. Does this make sense? Q3 going into next year, because although, yes, we're not dealing in the realm of CBDCs at this point in time, and, stablecoins are just now starting to get their footing, but tokenized deposits are going to be the thing that's going to kick off, I think, the fastest. And it's because that's already existing commercial bank money that is already have customers attached to it, that is getting ready to start the convergence from electronic to digital. It's like when it's like prime example, right? When digital ID becomes a thing here in America, because it's already been implemented in other places, and now digital ID is tied to your employment, what are you going to say? No, you won't work. You won't make money. How are you going to survive? Same thing with money. When your employer says, hey, we're getting ready to start paying you via a stable coin, what are you going to say? No? Because they're going to say, what do you mean no? Have you heard something called the Genius Act? It's the law. Does that make sense? So now that you're getting paid in this new form of digital currency, and the banking structure can support this new form of digital currency, there is going to be a massive amount in onboarding, whether that's a forced migration with things like, say for instance, like when America starts its process, right? And for everyone who gets a government check, you won't have a choice. When it's a payment coming from the government, they're going to pay you. Don't get me wrong, you would have gotten a letter in the mail. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, they've already started sending letters in the mail out about digital wallets. The government has, to some of the people that receive things like, here in America, SSI and certain payments. Okay? So know that these letters are going out, but they already know most people don't read these letters. Most people who get letters from the government and stuff in the mail, especially people that are on like food stamps, stuff like that, they get that stuff and they throw that. They don't care about that stuff. We just have me to renew, I'll renew. That's all they caring about, honestly, right? So most of the news that's about this digital shift, most of them not catching it. Most of them ain't gonna see it. It's just gonna happen to them. And their money's gonna go digital, whether it's stable coins, whether it's tokenized deposits, whatever it is. That's a forced migration of a technology on a whole subsection of the country. Think about everybody who gets a government check, as far as now the employees that work for the government, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, Space Force, Air Force. Think about these things. Because one day, all of those checks will be digital. All of those checks, like I had a video coming from one of the senators that was talking about just that. Talking about all governmental payments that are on like a set and forget thing that just goes out. Like all of your beneficial payments, it'll all be on a programmable digital system, and it'll just go out. And he even said it's going to reduce costs by what this is going to do for most industries. It's going to reduce the cost by millions, if not billions of dollars in fees they pay right now on so many different levels when it comes to sending and receiving value. It's going to drop that cost so dramatically low, and it's going to make it even more efficient because it's going to be instant, and whatever assets you just bought, you now have the legal ownership instantly. You don't have to wait for it to settle. You don't have to wait 3 or 4 days for the check to clear or for the thing to pass through the bank and wait for somebody to push a button. No, you're going to have legal, instant ownership. As soon as you sent your money, you got the ownership of it. And this is going to happen on multiple different levels throughout blockchain. And this integration and this curve that we're getting ready to go through is going to be something, like I said, like we've never seen before. And it's, in a lot of cases, you won't have a choice, especially if you're a little guy. Little guys always get pushed around. Like when your bank wanted to, like prime example, most jobs now, almost nobody gets a live check. Everybody gets direct deposits. Does that make sense? At one point in time, everybody in the country had live checks going on every other Friday. And now everyone has direct deposit, with the exception of a very, very small subsection of the population. The same thing's gonna happen with that. It's gonna be a rollout. It's gonna be an onboarding, but it's gonna be what, a 2-3 year. I honestly see it's like Gilbert Verdian said in another article. By 2035, the integration and interoperation of blockchain will be a norm. And if it's a norm by 2035, that means the utilization started much earlier, like 2030. A lot of people gonna get their feet wet with blockchain end of this year and into next year. Because when they offer, because they're gonna offer stimulus. And when they offer stimulus, because we're going to get some stimulus, I'm telling you it's coming. Trump don't keep saying about this $2,000 for no reason. But when we get it, it's going to be in the form of a stable coin. And that is the reason why Scott Bessette can say we're going to have about 2 trillion in stable coins by 2030. But right now we're only sitting at 300 and something 80 million. So where are we going to get that other 1.6 trillion utilization of stable coins from? Think about that. It's going to be a mass adoption of this technology. And it's because everybody already has a smartphone and everybody's already used to digital payments. And in the Quant, and what a lot of people don't realize is Quant has went so deep in LACchain to where it's not just the digital payments, but it's also the card payments are now digital as well. So when the older people swipe their cards, their credit cards, their debit cards, whatever it is, that is also being ran on blockchain. Insane. So that's capturing every generation.
You had stated around 2030 that this integration inevitably will already have that mass institutional onboarding. By then, the rules, the regulations, the frameworks, everything would have been laid out. Do you believe that that's the moment that we finally shift out of speculation into a utility-driven market? This market is going to look completely different than what it currently looks like now, the 2021, the 2017. Is that the moment you kind of your forecast of this shift in this fundamental market?
Absolutely. My dog's trying to get my attention. You probably gotta go to the bathroom. But come here. Come on.
Go ahead. Take care of it. Take care of it.
Come here. I'm just gonna pick him up. But absolutely. I think that it's going to be, the markets will probably see like this. Ready to be choppy, but it'll start to go up. Does that make sense? And around that true inflection point of the digital euro actually being a thing, and the digital pound actually being a thing, and the integration of stable coins and tokenized deposits actually being a everyday reality. You know, that is that 2030, catalyst per se. And I think at that point in time, we will really start to see utility in motion that's going to start driving price higher and higher in this, because it's no longer, me and you, buying Dogecoin, hoping it goes to $1. It's the central bank buying QNT because of transactions flowing through Overledger. It's like I just did a video because All in Crypto had one of the higher execs of Franklin Templeton on his show, and I put a couple clips of that in one of my videos. But it's like what she said: once these players get into the industry, they're going to have to start moving the way the industry does. Does that make sense? So these companies will have, they already have treasuries, but they will have to add whatever digital asset rails that they're choosing to use, whether it's a Hedera, whether that's Solana, whether that's XRP or XLM or whoever the case may be. You know, they're going to have to use these things. That's the reason why when Rodney E. Hood, who's the former controller of currency here in America, I brought a couple of his videos, but he literally said banks now have the green light to start buying and custodying crypto for their clients, but also they have the green light to start buying crypto for the utilization of DLT processes. Like, people don't understand that when they start buying, it's not going to be like we buy. It's going to be, you know, here's the yearly budget for XYZ. Make sure that the coffers can support these transactions. Does that make sense? And it's no different than the current software as a service that they already deploy billions of dollars on. Y'all are disconnected with the live.
What just happened? Did we lose him? Let me see if I can get him back in here. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Throw some ones in the chat if you've learned at least one thing new. I mean, he's like a machine gun, spitting out facts. This is saucy. We got him back. I don't know what happened. There we go.
Too much truth into the system.
They can't silence him.
Be nice.
Where did he get his info from? I'm assuming years and years of research from official sources and just puzzle piecing things together.
This is my thing, and this is what I always tell people. Please fact check me, please. But I'm telling you, once you fact check me, it's going to blow your mind. Anything that I say, fact check me on. Fact check me on the Bank of England. Fact check me on the ECB. Fact check me on, you know, the Bank of Japan. You know, fact check me. It's gonna blow your mind. Quant Network is an incredible opportunity. Fact check me on ISOTC 307. Fact check me on those 63 countries. I want you guys to really start being due diligent and do research, so that when you do see somebody like somebody's video, it won't shake your conviction in what you hold, because you know what you hold because you did the research. You watched the video and then you actually took the time to actually fact check what you heard in that video. Because I'm not going to spew any misinformation to you whatsoever. I'm only going to give you the information is what is being disseminated on official sources.
Somebody had asked for your opinion or your thoughts on the banks implementing their own blockchains.
That's going to happen. And I think that's the reason why Overledger is so important. Like if you go and you watch the launch of Overledger, that commercial, that's what they say in that. They say, we've made this to take all of the complexity out of you launching your own blockchain. You can come through Overledger. You can literally get to market 3, 6, 9 times faster. You don't have to hire any external developers. It is literally in an API, readable, codable language that you're already existing developers who already build out your applications will know and understand. And you can literally go through us and you can tap directly into DLT without an issue or problem. Like that is what Overledger was designed for. And it's not a bad thing. They can build out their own blockchains, you know. You might even, but that's why the multi-ledger rollup is so important, because even if they do build out their own blockchain, it'll still be funneled into the multi-ledger rollup. So, I mean, I think all of it's going to happen. It's just like, if you think about the .com bubble, think about how many .com companies was out before the bubble burst. We're talking hundreds, if not millions of .com companies, you know? And essentially the same thing is going to happen in this space, but in a good way, because they will be moving into a realm that's already regulated. With the .com bubble, that happened before regulation. And the regulation is what caused the bubble to actually pop. We are now getting regulation, but outside of that, we already have legitimate things that you can build your own blockchain on, like a Hedera, like a XRP ledger, like a XLM, Stellar, like, IOTA or Jasmy or VChain, all of these amazing blockchain companies that are layer ones that are allowing you to build layer twos on top of. So even if they go that route where I don't want to necessarily become a layer one, but I will tap into a layer two. Or I don't want to go that route at all. I'll just use one of Quant's suite of products that give you that same result. It's going to be multiple different ways that they integrate into Overledger.
I don't mean to circle back to this, but I'm still kind of curious. Would you be surprised? The year's 2030. How surprised would you be if QNT is in the 5-digit price range, 6-digit price range, 2030?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. And that could be short selling it. Honestly. Like I said, I can see within a year or so of the true integration. So let's just say, we're at the end of 2027. Let's just say that. I can see Quant already being $1,000 easily.
And that's one of the greatest opportunities that we pertain to right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was just looking at the market cap. I'm not even sure it's north of $1 billion.
It's like 900 something million. Yeah. It's not even a billion right now. And that's what most people are failing to realize when I say Quant to 100,000, and I mean a million, and I mean a million as well. But even to 1,000, think about that. That's only a 14.8. Let's just say the entire supply is out. That's only a $14.8 billion market cap. Like, truly think about that. You have companies that have not even close to the utility that Quant Network has. And we're talking about interconnecting all of those companies in the top 100 together. Think about that. And they said I think one like number like 56, but you have a company that is literally the use case of all use cases, the utility of all utility. And it is onboarding institutional clients at this point, like at the drop of a hat. Like it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Color Purple, but I'm just sitting back to see what color the walls turn next, because between, like I said, this year alone with Dentsu Soken and Murex, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, let any player in the world say that they just had an integration into Murex. That Murex is now using them as the infrastructure for 25% of the global Forex market. What that would have done to that particular company's price. But that would have been during the time. Think about if that had happened during the 21 like frenzy, his hysteria bull run. Quant would have been crazy expensive. Crazy. Ethereum who? But I can see easily in the let's just say 2030 to 2035, north of 10,000 easily.
What would you say to the individual who may be frustrated with its current price? They may not understand all this good news is coming out, but it doesn't necessarily reflect in the token. What's your perspective?
Okay, you guys, you do not want the news to move the price. You don't want that to happen, because if that happens, that's going to be a short-term, unsustained pump, and it's going to eventually dump. What you want is the utilization of that news to move the price. So let's just say the announcement came out about the Bank of England or Dentsu Soken or whoever, and they're talking about Q3 of 2026. Now that Q3 is here and the utilization of the actual technology is starting to kick off, now we want to see some type of movement. But you don't want the announcement to move the price, because it's only going to let you down in the long run. You want whatever that announcement was, you want for that use case to actually get built out. You want that use case to actually deploy and go live and actually be successful, because it's going to be the success of that use case that's going to actually move the price the way you want to move it. And the way Quant Network is building out alongside of governments and central banks, my God, is all I can say.
I have always told my audience that price action prior to rules and regulations is unsustainable, simply
Yep.
because we're in a narrative driven market where, yeah, your news cycle, your headlines may alter the price. And then once those rules and regulations, that'll be the catalyst for institutional onboarding. That's the utilization that'll drive the price. So right now we're still kind of in that unsustainable price market margin where it could be narrative driven, but we're still waiting on that catalyst for that onboarding and that full utilization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys, we are so close to the precipice of greatness. It's bananas. And to know that you have Quant under, let's just say $80 right now. So I don't know where it is. I really try not to look at the markets, honestly, because I like to just,
I'm with you on that as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
As far as the news, I'm up on it. Did Gilbert tweet anything? Did on LinkedIn? Did Quant Network release another new article? You know, did Hedera release another governing council member? Like the news, I'm up on the news. But as far as the price action, I'm completely muted to it, because when I dollar cost average, I'm a dollar cost average no matter what the price is. I don't care whether it's $50 or if it's $100. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do and keep it moving, because I know the long-term price potential of this asset, you know? And with the utilization use cases that are being built out on massive levels, like think about that, 25% of the Forex market, 2.87 trillion a day is what that is. Not a year, not a decade. I mean, not 2 point, I'm sorry, 1.8. It's 1.87. 1.87 trillion a day. That's insane. And that's just one use case. I brought things like UK Pay, and that was like 5 trillion or some crazy crap like that a day. Like, you guys, we talking about so much money is going to be flowing through these institutional grade distributed ledger technology companies that are positioning themselves behind the rules, the laws, and the regularization, and onboarding the standardization of the technology. You guys, that's like, you just have to be patient. You have to see through this time. Think about it. Think about like when Amazon was popping, but the price was doing nothing as far as the market was concerned. You had them moving out of books and into being a more goods and services, you know, being sold. And then it grew to a place where you can almost get anything. And at one point in time, the price was lagging. I mean, it was because the rest of the market had lagged. And this was before that Mag 7 actually took off. Well, that's where we are right now, you guys. We're in that point where the market is lagging. And it's because it's tied to something that is not tangible, that is experiencing its bear market, which is Bitcoin. But understand that we have regulation going into place and the true utilization of the technology coming into fruition. And you truly are going to have like this proliferation of distributed ledger technology companies that have already had massive partnership announcements globally. Like, it's been insane that nobody's paying attention. Like Hedera alone being tied back to things like the Australian Central Bank. What? Being tied back to the country of Georgia's land registry. What? The tokenization of every single property in that country is being done on top of Hedera's technology. You have them tied back to things like the Indian carbon credit markets. Whether you like them or dislike them, whatever, it's still a thing and it's still happening. But think about that. You have them tied back to the Dubai court system. You have them tied back to the smart cities throughout the EU. Like, I mean, sorry, not the EU, the United Arab Emirates. Like, We're talking massive use cases. I talk about some of this stuff on my video tomorrow. I drop a Hedera video tomorrow, but you have something like 50 million smart meters that are built on top of Hedera's technology. We're talking about massive use cases being built out on some of these distributed ledger technology companies. And the price of Hedera is 8 cents. The price of Quant is what, 70 something bucks? Something that you could literally not eat McDonald's. You could not, go out and party. You could not, buy drinks or whatever and say, you want to know what? I'm going to take this little $50 or $20 or whatever, and I'm going to buy a couple shares of Quant. I'm going to buy a couple shares of HBAR. And let's just see what this thing does. It's just people aren't seeing this opportunity for truly what it is because they can't see the forest because of the trees. Is there a thick tree line? Absolutely. And that tree line is price suppression and terrible lows of a quote unquote bear market that we're going through right now, which I just feel like it's just an innate pullback of the market because fundamentally we have changed. And eventually those fundamentals will start to reflect that value. So just be patient. That's all I can say, you guys. I know, but just be patient.
It seems like there is so much hope and positivity and light coming into the space. And ultimately, I guess at the end of the day, as long as we continue it within our journey of becoming educated investors, we do stumble upon the right projects that will really kind of be around for the next 50, 70 years, 100 years, if this truly is that next financial system that they are onboarding. Channing, if you could please give us some closing statements. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw up his YouTube channel, guys. Please give him a follow. Channing, give us some closing statements, please.
You guys, first off, I want to say, like I say quite frequently, I want to thank you for your time. That's first off, because truly, time is the only currency that we have, and it is not weighed lightly on me or blockchain bully that you guys took the time to come out to his live and listen to me rant. You guys, so I really do appreciate your time. I truly do. But know that we truly sit in a place that no one in retail has ever sit before since the beginning of investment. And that is the retail investor has front run the institutions in every single investment class in history. The institutions make their moves first, and as retail FOMO in, they make money off of our backs. But this is the first time in human history that the institutions are coming in after retail has already been seeded. Truly understand what you hold when you hold these distributed ledger technology companies that are building out fundamental use cases like Hedera, like he was just saying. Hedera has a 100-year roadmap. Think about that. Think about the thought processes that is being built out on top of Hedera so that the founders know that he's going to be dead and gone in 100 years. But he is building something that he feels the utility and the use case that's being built out will sustain and long last anything that you could possibly imagine. Think about this. The New York Stock Exchange is 233 years old. Think about that person who had the wherewithal and that foresight to start the New York Stock Exchange. Could he have imagined that 233 years later, the infrastructure that he built would be the behemoth that it is today, that is getting ready to now move into its digital life cycle? Like, truly understand what's being built out. And these distributed ledger technology companies are building out fundamental infrastructure that is going to long last any of the people that's building in this space right now. And knowing that you took the time to understand this transition of time is what Congress has called multiple times the digital revolution. They're calling it the golden age. Like, truly understand, right? The last time America had a golden age, we're talking about the 1800s. And what followed the golden age was the Gilded Age. And what I mean by that is the golden age, what built that out was things like your railroads. There was things like strong infrastructure as far as companies are concerned. Uh-oh, buddy. As far as companies are concerned, being built out, providing critical infrastructure to the American economy. And then by the time the Gilded Age took place is when their descendants had now received that generational wealth and started building like crazy, all these mansions and all of these crazy things. Know that we're right there at that precipice. Know that what we do right now, your children and grandchildren and possibly even great grandchildren could potentially live on the decisions that you're making right now in the distributed ledger technology space, because you're literally at the inception of the infrastructure being laid and the glow live of the onboarding of a global technology. Truly understand what you hold when you hold these distributed technology companies and the tokens that power their network, you guys. It is so much more than crypto. It is so much more than a meme token. It is so much more than any of us can truly comprehend, because we say these things like, oh, the DTCC, settles 11 trillion a day, which is bananas. We say these things like the DTCC, settled 3.7 quadrillion dollars last year. Yeah, these are numbers that we're saying, but when we, with things go mainnet, like with Hedera and different things, then you start seeing trillions of transactions flowing through it. And you start seeing that value be derived from it. It's going to be something that we've never seen before, because we literally have a front row seat at the table, you guys. We have most people in the world, 99.9% of the people in the world have no clue this transition is taking place right now. Most of them will never know it. They will only know payments got faster and cheaper. No one's gonna know the infrastructure. No one's gonna know the blockchains that is being ran on top of. No one's gonna know anything about multi-applications or mDApps, or, they're just gonna know that their digital wallet holds any asset. They're not gonna know that it's Quant's over wallet. They're not gonna know anything about a multi-application. They're just gonna know that with this application, with it doing on Web3, it can be done on any blockchain. Understand what mass adoption is going to be. It's going to be a seamless integration into this space. And anybody who's watching this right now, watching any of my videos or any of my cohorts videos in the space right now, literally you have a front row seat. And this is going to be an incredible time, because the golden age is only followed up by the gilded age. And we may not be here to see the gilded age, but our children and grandchildren will. And that's the most important part about this all. It's not about the money that we're going to make in this lifetime. It's about the legacy that you're going to leave in the next. You guys truly understand what you hold when you hold these companies. You hold a piece of global financial infrastructure. And I do not say that lightly. Okay? Those are my closing thoughts. I thank you guys for your time again.
Wow. Guys, give it up to King Channing. Thank you so much for the time and the education that you put in. I know I definitely learned something. Hopefully, the viewers absolutely did as well. I really can't thank you enough, and I'm excited to potentially maybe explore a little bit more research with you someday in the future, brother.
Absolutely. And so whoever just said they could be my grandchildren, absolutely. I have a son, and he is 20. How old is my son now? 23. So I may look young, but you guys, I'm over 40.
You could be my father.
So yes, you guys, definitely be my grandchild.
Channing, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna send you over the entire video. Okay. We'll talk in the DMs for that, but chat. Okay, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Please show King Channing some love. Give a follow to his YouTube channel and his X account.
Please, and it's at King Channing on both of them. I appreciate you guys. I truly do.
All right, Channing. Thank you very much. I'm gonna disconnect you out of here. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Y'all be safe.